Legend is the only word adequate to describe Adam Copeland and the contributions that he has made to the professional wrestling industry. Alongside his partner Christian, in the Attitude Era, they revolutionized tag team wrestling, mainstreaming the tag team ladder match. Post-Attitude Era, Edge was able to win the King of the Ring tournament, the Intercontinental Championship, the WWE World Championship, all the while telling stories with icons like The Undertaker, Mick Foley, John Cena, Randy Orton, having classic confrontations with people like Shawn Michaels and Eddie Guerrero, defining concepts that we now take for granted like the Money in the Bank briefcase and becoming the ultimate opportunist.
It's so good.
Yeah,
and it holds up.
And then I started trying to find the book.
Can't find it?
It's like $1,000.
Really?
Yes.
There's a real studio here. I'm not just trying to trick you into coming over to my house.
Just to hang out in the basement. Oh, Bull Nakano, Beth would love that.
Yeah, I'm a big
So she
Bull Nakano
She
person.
loves some Bull Nakano.
Adam was able to do the impossible, coming back from what should have been a career-ending injury to tell new stories with people like Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and AJ Styles. In 2023, he left the WWE to tell new stories in AEW. And on the eve of his World's End street fight with former partner Christian, he's here to talk about all of it with me. So it's a very special day in the Notsam studio because, ladies and gentlemen, the rated R superstar, Adam Copeland, is here. Bam. How are you, man?
Very good, very good. I'm glad we finally
Made this happen.
got together to make this happen. You were threatening to fly to Asheville.
Yeah.
But I felt bad. It's like, I mean, Asheville's a beautiful place. But,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, days off, you don't necessarily want to fly to the mountains of North Carolina.
I may or may not have lied to you about your wife having plans for your birthday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No,
I heard about that. Yeah, she got me. She totally got me. Because I didn't know anything was going on. I was like, it's my 50th birthday. That's kind of a big one. So
Right.
I'm going to be sticking around here.
Right. Yeah. We were trying to make plans for that weekend. And then she was like, no, yeah, just tell him I'm not doing anything and that you could do it the day of his birthday because I'm doing something. But then I was like, perfect. And then I was like, wait, am I really going to go, hey, good news, on your birthday, I'll fly to your house and do a podcast? Like, this isn't going to work.
I got an idea. On your birthday. Well, let's talk about wrestling.
Yeah. I mean, you like wrestling.
I mean,
right?
I do.
Well, no, I think now is probably a far more appropriate
This worked
time,
out well.
to talk about everything that's been happening. And I'm glad, too, because we spoke like very briefly in, I want to say like 2011 or something. It was when WWE put the DVD out. And it was like pretty quick after you had retired.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying that you felt like it was a relief at the time.
Yeah.
And I had such trouble, still to this day, wrapping my head around it because you're also the guy who's like a lot of us that are watching this interview right now that grew up watching this stuff and this is your dream. Was that one of those things where you were like, look, reality is reality, and I have to figure out how to make this okay, or was it really okay that fast?
I had to figure out how to make it okay.
Yeah.
Because if I don't, then what?
Right.
You know, then that road, that wormhole, could be a very, very unhappy place to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to wrap my mind around it, and I was forced to do it fast. And luckily, within like a week, 2 weeks, I was out filming Haven. So that fell in my lap accidentally because they saw my retirement speech, the executive producers of that show. So that helped the transition, and it made me realize that there were still creative outlets and there were still ways to tap that creative vein that wasn't professional wrestling. Now, it didn't offer the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't my lifelong love. It wasn't that first thing that I decided to do that I wanted to be since I was a little kid. That was not acting. Now, part of wrestling is acting. And the more I started to realize that and what it had taught me to move into this new profession, I realized everything's just same tree, just different branches.
Mm-hmm.
And but so that definitely helped with the transition, but I had to, you know, quickly come to the realization because I was told I could never do this again. So when you're told that, it kind of makes retirement easier because there's no,
But there are
there's
guys
no fence
that,
to straddle.
But there are guys that fight that.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I'm probably going to fight it now.
Right.
which is the kicker, right?
Yeah.
You know, I'm getting ready. It's like, okay, do I have, you
Right.
know, I didn't have to worry about that then. So that part of it was easy.
Yeah.
And made it much easier than this retirement will be. Because, you know, knock on wood, this one is going to be my choice.
But you've been saying that too. Like I heard you say that when you first came back and you were like, yep, I'm just going to put a couple years and then it's going to be my choice. And then I watch when you get to AEW and you're like, no, I want to do it more. I want to do it more and more and more. And I'm like, okay, it's a tough thing to choose.
Well, it is. It is. And it is addictive.
Yes.
There's no way around it. You can't, like, I try to explain to people, okay, let's say you got theme music.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as a note hits, a crowd erupts. And you get pyro. And like you are a puppet master in a way because you're telling a story live and you're getting instant gratification to know whether that story is hitting on all cylinders, if it's falling flat, whatever it is. That's super fun. And there's a lot of stuff in there in that bottle.
Yeah.
And that's tough, man,
Yeah.
to walk away from. When I was forced to, okay, all right, this time's going to be more difficult. And with AEW, you know, I looked at the roster and I went, okay, hold on. I think I got a couple more. I got a couple more.
Yeah.
But I don't also want to be that guy who's 60 and going, I got one more, and I'm bouncing on the trampoline with the weight. Like, I don't want to be that guy, right? No offense,
know,
Dennis Stamp. God
Sometimes
rest
the
his soul.
calls are they take a little more time in between, but
they're
you always
coming.
got to stay ready.
You know, I don't want to be, you know, I don't mean that in a disrespectful way at all, but I just don't want to be that guy, right? I want to be able to get out when, let's say, a Kyle Fletcher looks at the run sheet and goes, "Oh, cool,
Yeah.
I want to stay there."
Yes. Yes.
I mean, who knows? Maybe I'm just a dumbass and it's already on the other side. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm
There
having
is-
fun.
And there is
so.
also, I don't know, man, and maybe this is how I know I'm getting older. I'm at the point now where when I saw Dennis Stanton Beyond the Man, I'm like, oh, that's the guy you don't want to be. But now I'm like, there is a certain romance to
There
being
is.
that guy who's just like, nope, this is my life and this is what I'm doing.
And I'm fully just, I'm accepting it. This is it.
Yeah.
This is what I do.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
You were out. You were out. And they
I
pulled
got
you
out.
right- Yeah.
They pulled me back in. Damn it.
I think also people don't realize like how much you've done, right? Because you started so young.
Yeah.
And were forced into what you thought was retirement so young. The people don't know. Like I was listening to you talk about your first WWE tryout match being in 1996.
Yeah.
And like the idea that's pre-attitude. That's
know.
Ultimate Warrior. That's
Yeah.
like
As a matter of fact, the main event that night was Warrior Vader.
Warrior Vader.
Yes. And they popped a good house
Sure.
because that was the Warrior Return tour and it's
Yeah.
against Vader. So you're, oh man, and this is still Vader, right?
Of course.
So it was Cops Coliseum. I think there's about 10,000, which at that stage
Good.
was good.
Yeah.
And I just remember not really being able to grasp that I was like 3.5, 4 years into my career and I'm already getting this shot.
Yeah.
And you know, and to get there, and then that whole day's the podcast in itself because I'm working Bob Hawley, who's still Sparkplug at this point, right, and still got racing stripes, and that's how far back this is.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's why, especially because like people don't have a problem thinking that Bob Holly is a badass when he's hardcore Holly, but Thurman Sparky Plug, people never associate that as the same badass like guy.
They didn't equate those two together, and but he still worked that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I can attest. But yeah, then so, you know, and I think that's the other thing. There's not that many guys that people that number one, you dipped your toe in before the Attitude Era even started, but you've got Attitude Era, you've got Ruthless Aggression, you've got Post Ruthless, you've got Current Day, you've got everything. I mean, so when you came in, right? When you came in as Edge,
Yeah.
was the plan always, because this wasn't even pre-NXT. This was pre-OVW. This was pre...
There was nothing.
Right.
There was nothing. There was Memphis, kind of.
Kind of.
Maybe, kind of. But I signed a developmental deal, and everybody probably knows the story. It was for $210 a week.
Yeah.
And they said, just go keep getting experience. So I just go get myself booked still, just like
Right.
just the indie guy getting himself booked. But now I could say, sign to WWF,
Right.
you know, at that stage, right?
Right.
So that meant A, I could get booked easier,
Mm-hmm.
and B, for more money.
Yeah.
So it helped.
Plus, you got the 200.
Yeah, and I got the 210 for groceries at least.
Yeah.
But that's what that became. It's like, okay, there's my groceries taken care of. Cool.
Right.
And now I can use some of this to make some of that gear that I designed, and you know, because from day one I always wanted to look like a pro.
Right.
I didn't want to look like a weekend warrior because I never considered myself one, even
Right.
if I was just wrestling on the weekends.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so I went to Japan. I ended up being friends with Bad News Allen and Bad News Brown and Jerry Morrow, and they took Jay and I to Japan, and then we'd go out to the Maritimes, and I'd get booked out there, and now I'm wrestling Rick Martel 7 nights a week, you know, and just gaining as much experience as I could, and I'd always pick those guys' brains, and for whatever reason, maybe because they just saw that I wanted it, they just let their knowledge go. And I always just sat there and tried to take everything that I could in, you know. But I think back, man, it's like I've wrestled Jimmy Boogie Woogie Man Valiant. I've wrestled Terry Funk. I've wrestled Jerry Lawler and Ric Flair and Rick Martel and Bad News Allen and Owen Hart and like Mr. Perfect.
It's wild.
Well, what is happening? Like, you know, and then I get with the Undertakers and the Shawn Michaels, and then from there it's the Ortons and the Cenas and the Batistas,
Yeah.
and then there's the gap. But then I'm able to get back and get in with Rollins and Reigns and AJ and like all of those guys, and this feels like a completely new chapter on top of that.
So when you are like in a ring now after all that, and like you're staring across the ring and you see a 19-year-old Nick Wayne, are you like, this is there's been 3 lifetimes.
I remember getting with Jimmy Uso,
Yeah.
who was a kid when Keish would bring him, and wrestling around with him in the ring.
Wow.
And they're kids,
Yeah, of course.
you know, and now I'm wrestling him, and I was like, oh, he's got a little white in his beard. Okay. What's that mean about me? You know, like, but or Dom. You
I
know,
mean-
Dom had his first match with me as a heel in Portland, main event of Raw. And if you had told me 20 years earlier, when him and I are doing spitballs at people through a little like empty pen in catering, that we'd be main eventing Raw, I'd say, well, I won't still be doing that then.
Right.
I won't be able to.
Right.
How's that even possible?
Right.
But here we are.
Yeah. Do you feel like a different person since then, or do you feel like, well, I'm the same dude? It's amazing that you're a full-fledged human being now.
You know, I still feel like a goof. I still feel like you know, I don't feel totally grown up.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like wrestling keeps you suspended in this pocket, at least while you're doing that, because you're jumping around in spandex,
Right.
right? You're half naked.
Right.
There's an element of immaturity to that.
Yeah.
It's but I love it.
Right.
Right.
It's
And
the
I
best.
revel in it.
Yeah.
But I definitely feel like a different person in terms of what life is now, and where I'm at in terms of that, and the knowledge that I've accrued throughout life. I do feel like I bring that to my character now, as opposed to like, gosh, if you showed me like Edge and Christian stuff, I'd be like, man, oh, those guys knew nothing. Just and listen to their little voices. Bless their little hearts, you know, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, totally.
Or when I talk to new talent now, and I'm like, hey, if you didn't do this as often, it'll get a bigger reaction. And then if I'm ever shown an Edge and Christian match, I'm like, ew, right.
I did
so
that.
I'm a hypocrite.
Yeah.
But all of those guys at the top of the card were telling me that then.
Of course.
I'm now relaying.
It's what you're supposed to do. You're
It is.
supposed to have the top guys are supposed to tell you what to do. You're supposed to not listen to them and do it what you want to do anyway. And then you get to be a top guy, so you could tell the young guys not to do it, and they're going to do it anyway. And they'll.
But when you become one of those top guys, you go, oh, they were right.
Interesting.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah. But you can't, there's no way you can figure that out until you've
Can't.
got that experience.
Can't. And you're trying to get noticed. You're trying to, it's like, okay, so just let us in the Hardys and give us ladders.
Right.
And just give us that.
Right.
And we'll be off over here. And
Right.
we'll do our thing, which will get noticed, because how are we going to get noticed with Steve Austin in full
Yeah.
316 mode, and The Rock ascending, and Undertaker and Mick Foley, and it's like,
And you're trying to figure out who Edge is. You're
yeah,
like, well, I
don't
got a
know
coat.
I don't know what Edge is.
I got a coat. I guess I hang out on the subways a
Yeah,
lot.
and just randomly attack people. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my character development right there. Okay. So I would wrestle, especially like my first match, knock my opponent out. Right. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh my God, what is happening? Like, I'd never heard an opponent before that night.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a rough night.
And was that, did you get like in trouble for that? Was he mad at you? Was it, or was it
because
just,
everyone
it
understood?
happens.
I felt horrible.
Right.
Like, you don't, that's not the intention. It's like, I didn't go, wait, I'm going to try and knock out my opponent on my
gonna
first
send him a
match on
message.
TV. That's what I'm going to, that locker room's going to respect me. No. So it was a rough night. It really was. But, while all of that's happening, I'm trying to decipher what exactly Edge is.
Yeah.
I was given no direction at all. At all.
Wow. So you just see the vignettes air and you're like, oh,
Okay. I knew they were going to be stylized like a Crow type vibe.
mm-hmm.
But beyond that, no one knew what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, truly, no one had any ideas. So when I couldn't think of anything to do, I go, I don't know what to do with my hands. I'm Ricky Bobby, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's what that scream was. It's like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I know how to wrestle. I don't know how to develop a character. I don't know. I'm 23
Right.
as well. So, like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
I know how to do hammerlocks, and I can do some moves, but I don't know what an Edge is.
Right.
Besides the guy in U2, and
Yeah. There already is an Edge.
Yeah.
And he doesn't look like me at all.
no. So, yeah, it was a lot of stumbling around in the dark.
Was there always like, was the understanding we're going to bring Christian in after we bring you in and you're going to do, or is
No.
it just,
Because initially I was signed, then I did the Funkin' Dojo.
Right.
With Dory Funk, with Pat Patterson, Tom Pritchard. And that was people that they had signed or people that were on TV that they thought needed more work. It could be a language barrier because Taka was in there, and Taka was amazing, but it was just a language barrier. And guys that they thought they might want to sign. So that's what the first one was. They realized, at least from the wrestling perspective, I was ready to go, and I got going. In the meantime, I kept saying, "Hey, I got this partner. He's really good." Not even thinking, like, nobody does that.
right. Especially
Like,
at that stage.
I'm just starting on TV, and I'm telling them about my partner. Like, well, what was I thinking?
Right.
But I knew how good he was and is. So eventually Jim Cornette saw him and went, okay, we'll get him in the next camp. Now I'm already on TV. I'm already starting to go. And then it's funny, the difference in how you get told creative. I was just told like 2 days before, hey, we're bringing him in as your brother. Awesome. Okay. All right. And I'm wrestling Owen Hart in Hamilton. And then Jay's going to come in.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, sign me up.
Right.
So, and that started it. And then from there, our kind of natural chemistry, just in terms of teaming and this is what we dreamed of, since we're kids.
Were you ever worried that they were going to put you in a poofy shirt when you joined the Brood? Because it was like they put him in a poofy shirt to match Gangrel's poofy shirt.
So,
but then you joined the Brood, no poofy shirt.
Well, and this is kind of where, like, I've never been afraid to go say no.
Even then.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was one of those instances.
They tried to.
No, I'm going to do my thing still, because my thing has already been on the show before either of these two characters.
Right.
To me, that's important. To me, that's because I predate Gangrel.
Yeah.
I predate Christian.
Yeah.
So this thing is already an established something. If I just go to that, now I lose all that identity, and I don't want to do that.
Yes. And I mean, and honestly, when you think about it, it's like it was a big deal that the Brood brings in Edge. If Edge now becomes just another, like somebody that looks exactly like Christian or Gangrel, it's like
you got three guys who are very similar, all blonde, all you know, and so what makes it different? What sets you apart? And you have to have that mindset, even if you're in a group. You know, you have to commit to the team, you have to commit to the group, but you still have to think in terms of this is going to end one day, and when it does, I don't want to be disposable puffy shirt guy number 3.
Right.
You know?
Right. And the puffy shirt would look terrible with a trench coat.
It would.
Like to wear the
really
coat.
would. I'd start looking like a dandy from England or something, you know.
Right.
Like,
Now we really don't know who Edge is.
I become Todd Rundgren from T-Rex or something.
You know, I think that what's interesting about the TLC matches, right, is everybody always brings them up, but to me, there's a couple of wrestling matches that I can pinpoint as a fan shifted how I kind of looked at wrestling, right? Like the Bret Shawn Iron Man match at WrestleMania 12.
Yeah.
That I remember as a kid going like, there's no way I want to watch an hour of just two guys wrestling. I like sports entertainment. I like the showbiz. And it was the first time I was like, oh, this rules. Like, oh, I like this kind of wrestling, right? So it opens up the world of wrestling. And to me, my experience, way more than the TLC matches, was the No Mercy ladder match. You and Christian and the Hardy Boys in that No Mercy. I mean, I remember that first tag ladder match going like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this. And it completely shifted how I appreciated wrestling.
Yeah, you know, we knew we had the possibility to catch lightning in a bottle with it because we were all of similar mindset. We were all willing to try and push the boundaries. And we knew there'd never been a tag team ladder match.
Right.
So you got a blank canvas. And you get a blank canvas and you can just start trying to splash paint over here or there and just see what sticks. That's a really fun place to be working from. You know, when you're doing the first of something, I mean, my God, it's like, how exciting is that? And I equate it to like the first time the Beatles hit feedback while recording and they kept it. You know, that's kind of what it felt like. Like, we have this thing, we have 4 nuts. Let's go just create anarchy out there. And it was really the moment for me when I realized, okay, we're onto something here, was Jay's running drop kick up the ladder to Jeff trapped in the corner. And I heard that reaction. I was like, we've never gotten that before. Okay. This is, by the end of this thing, these people are not going to know what hit them. Because that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg of what we got coming.
That's the fun you were talking about. That's so fun when you know, I know what this story is.
Yeah. And you know what's coming. And if you think that's something, oh my God. Yeah. You know, that's super fun.
Yeah.
And that's something that acting doesn't bring, because acting, you know, like we filmed Percy Jackson a year and a half ago and it's just airing now. Right. And you don't know if the take that you necessarily liked is going to be the one that's used, because it might not work for the totality of the scene.
Sure.
So, but with wrestling, and I think probably the closest thing I can think of is stand up.
Yeah, sure.
And somebody who said is killing, right? Or it's not. And you realize, oh, okay, gotta switch paths here. Or maybe a band with a set list, or you get a really good band. You get like a Pearl Jam who can call their set list on the fly.
Right.
Kind of thing.
White Stripes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where it's like they're feeling the room. They're feeling the audience.
It's interesting with comedy though, because comedians can go, man, that didn't land at all, did it? Like they can address when a joke doesn't work, and the audience likes that.
Yes.
And then the audience can go on that ride with them. That's
sucked,
what,
didn't it?
Yeah.
Like, we can't stop mid-match and go, well, I really messed that one up. Sorry. There's no doing it. And also, if you mess up, you break your neck.
That's right.
So there's
Forgot about that.
There's that
Forgot
part.
about that. Especially if it's the first tag team ladder match and we're just throwing everything we possibly have at the wall. What was the reaction to that? Like when you get back, because you hadn't really had anything like that in WWE before. Is Vince going like, what was that? Is it what he expected? Is
I didn't see Vince.
Wow.
Honestly, I came back and I saw Mick Foley, who was just like effusive with his praise. He just said, "You just solidified yourselves, guys. Like you just did something no one's done before."
Yeah.
Jericho, the guys who were not afraid to admit that we just did something. So that was really nice. And it was such a crazy day because I was living in the Bahamas at that point. I flew in, there was a hurricane coming to Florida. So I flew into Miami the night before the hurricane hit. So I rented a car, drove through the hurricane up to Tampa, caught the last flight to Cleveland. I landed in Cleveland at 4 p.m., 4:30 p.m. for a 7 p.m. show. Yeah. It was that, but I'm driving through this thing white knuckled. I can't see it. Then I'm like, I have to get there because this is the match.
Yeah.
This is the match.
Yeah.
If I don't get there, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Do they put somebody else in that spot? Do they just not do the match? And now I've hosted those three guys. Got to get through.
And you weren't wrong, right? I mean, it's the blueprint of what becomes the triple threat match. It's of what becomes the 2 TLC matches and what becomes the foundation for
It becomes Money in the Bank ladder matches.
Yeah.
It becomes multi-man matches. It's
a really important.
It's the starting point for that.
Which is interesting.
Which and like Sean Razor, Brett Bad News, like those are all the precursors to us.
Right.
So that's the evolution.
But this is the only one where it's like you kind of say, yeah, it was the finals of the TIT tournament. Yeah, that's
Jesus.
That's what the Attitude Era was in a nutshell, right? It was like all this like amazing stuff, but also very embarrassing, like subtext.
And there's a lot of people that really pine for those Attitude Era days. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
And it was on fire, so you can't dispute that. But it's like 3-minute matches.
Right.
Like they were haikus. You couldn't tell a story.
Right.
It's we're talking like a 3-line poem here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I wrestled Lance Storm for 1 minute and 8 seconds in Madison Square Garden. And we had to get a run in, and I had to get, I think, laid out by Christian at the end of it, like
right.
a minute and 8 seconds.
What are we even doing?
What? Like,
yeah.
Do we even lock up?
Right.
Like, I don't even, what do we do with that? We made it work.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at it, for quality over necessarily maybe just quantity and the wrestling is by far better now.
Yeah.
But the characters were, I think what the great part about the Attitude Era was, and I've said this, you could have Crash Holly come out first, massive reaction.
Yeah.
And from top to bottom on that lineup, everyone had an established character. Even if you're just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Even if you're stumbling through, you're still something. I feel like somewhere along the way, because the onus got put so much on the wrestling, the character side of things got a little bit lost.
Mm-hmm.
So now you can get all those, they're all great matches. Everybody's trying to have match of the year. But do I care about them as much?
Right.
Because I'm not invested in the person who's doing the moves.
Yeah.
And that to me was one of the biggest learning curves I had to understand. It's like, okay, when they care about the character, they'll care even more about what moves you do. And you don't have to do a spear off the top of a ladder. And if you do, you can save it for main event in Toronto against John Cena in a TLC match for the heavyweight championship. Yeah. That means a double, FU through 2 tables. Right.
Right.
If I'm going to spear Mick Foley through a flaming table with thumbtacks in my back, it's going to be WrestleMania. It was along that time when I realized, okay, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to make it mean something. I'm going to make sure it's something that's replayed forever.
Yeah. I mean, I think, that's a pretty good philosophy. If it's something that's going to affect me potentially forever, the moment needs to last equally as long.
The pain has to equal the moment.
Yeah. The ROI, return on investment.
Yes.
That's it.
Right.
Right.
It just makes sense.
Now, did you have that moment where after No Mercy and then the 3 triple threat ladder matches, one of them involving you spearing Jeff Hardy in midair in the most insane thing ever, did you have that moment where you were like, okay, I need to shift and start really thinking about what this character is, because I can't do this 2-3 times a year every year. Like this, I'm gonna.
It was that second TLC in Houston where I had the realization we can't continue to try and top this. They're going to get desensitized, they being the audience, and it won't feel as special anymore. And in trying to top it, one of us is going to get really, really injured.
Yeah.
And we're going to keep trying. So I wouldn't say it was necessarily there where I was like, okay, this is what I need to do now. That didn't come until later. And it didn't come until like I really started understanding, what this rated R superstar thing was. And it was strangely, it was a promo in Pittsburgh. It was right after Matt came back, and he had cut a promo on Raw the week before, and I cut one backstage in Pittsburgh, and that was the instant where I was like, "Ooh, that's where I need to navigate from." Where I was for that promo is what I need to carry out with me to the ring, is what I need to carry with me into every promo. That was the shifting point, really, where I went, "Okay, hold on a second." It was that promo.
Like an essence hits you as you're doing the promo, where you're like, I can't lose that.
It hit me, the intensity, just all of it.
Yeah.
I realized that's where I had to get to, and had to be able to call it and tap into it.
Yeah.
And not just have certain moments or certain scenarios cause it. I needed to be the one causing it.
Right.
And that was a big, big switch for me. I was like, okay, right. I need to understand how I felt while I was doing that and be able to get there at a moment's notice.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's really interesting too, because it goes back to what you said a minute ago, where like you did go on this run where you were a good guy and you were having great matches. It's kind of what you did, like when SmackDown first started to take shape, and it's like, I'm a guy who has awesome matches, and you were working with great people, and like you were working with Kurt Angle and do the hair match, which was phenomenal, and teaming with Hogan and winning the tag titles and everything. But there is this thing where it's like, what's the meat?
Yeah.
Like, aside from Edge is a great wrestler and he seems like a likable dude, what's the meat on this bone?
Yeah.
Like,
is there any meat on the bone?
Yes.
And that was truly, again, you can do moves all day long.
Yeah.
And you'll get to a certain level. You will. I got to the level where I was wrestling Kurt Angle and wrestling Eddie.
You were the king of the ring.
And king of the ring and teaming with Hogan. And it's a great place to be.
Mm-hmm.
But to get further than that, there needed to be more. There needed to be more layers. There needed to be a reason. What's the reason? Okay, this guy loved wrestling. Well, if you're in it, chances are, not everybody, but about 98% of us loved it. That's why we got into it. And that can't just be your character.
Mm-hmm.
So it really, that and working in Toronto SummerSlam against Batista and Jericho in a triple threat IC title. I hadn't been back to Toronto for like a year and a half because I've been out with my neck fusion.
Mm-hmm.
Come back as IC champ. I'm like, right, I'm going to blow the roof off this bad boy.
Mm-hmm.
Came out and I booed. That to me was I took it, I filed it because like, I'm going to use that because I was mad out there. I was like, you sons of bitches.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, hometown.
Yeah.
Right. I'm gonna file this one away. I'm gonna use it. And I walked into the back. I went right up to Vince, said, got to turn heel. Now we got to give him reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't give him a reason except that I didn't change anything.
Right.
Okay, well, let's change some stuff.
When you went, the full rated R run, like, I feel like you made a conscious choice to be like, there are people who think that I might be a jerk.
Yep.
I need to give them no doubt.
Yep.
Like, I need to live that.
Yep.
And it just has to be okay. Like, my 10 friends over here can know, no, Adam's a good guy, but the rest of the world has to see this absolute scumbag every single week.
Yeah. Yeah, because I put myself in a situation and I realized, okay, I've put myself in this situation, so now what do? I could fold and just kind of, tuck my tail and go kind of be there on the show, or I can lean into this and have this audience believing that I have no redeeming qualities whatsoever,
Mm-hmm.
and fully lean into it and just make some money out of it.
Yeah.
Because we're here. All right, we're here. What do we do? That to me was the only positive that could come out of it, is hopefully we can all move up the card.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my goal.
How do
was
you-
truly my goal.
And that's something, and I feel like it's as relevant now as it ever has been, that like personal issues happen and the internet is the internet and people talk, and like one side of a story comes out, this side of the story comes out, and everybody establishes opinions on it. And whether you want it to affect the on-screen product or not, like you found out, it's going to affect the on-screen product. How do you, and maybe it's situation dependent, get to a place where you're like, look, I know there's real stuff going on here, but the only choice we have is to tell a story.
It was pretty quickly. I wanted to kind of get into it sooner than we did, and just face it head on and let's go.
Yeah.
And we eventually got there when they brought Matt back.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, here we go. Now at least all under the same roof. Now we can get to work on trying to make something from this, because it's already out in the ether anyway. So let's use it. And in a perfect world, then we get it put behind us. And in a perfect world, we're all in a better place, at least professionally.
Yes.
After the fact.
Yes.
Because at that point, that's the only positive I could think to pull out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And basically just, okay, I fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
Now what do I do? And that was really the first instance where I lousy way to get there. But I feel like that's almost when I stepped into manhood, when I fully went, okay, right, I have to be, I'm not a kid anymore. I'm just on the road having fun. Now there's bigger things.
Sure.
And I need to face them.
And in an ass backwards way, there is something about that's taking responsibility, where it's like, I'm going to let everybody
very
hate
ass
me.
backwards
Real ass
way.
backwards. And I got to say it, because otherwise you'd be patting yourself on the
It's
back.
a very ass backwards way. It's a very ass backwards way.
You can't even take that. No, I get it. I also found it interesting, right, that like you come up in the Attitude Era and you're making your bones, and you're finally getting to that top spot. And just as you're getting to the top spot is when that new generation of guys come in. And when the Cenas and Batistas and the Ortons come in.
Yep.
Was there any part of you that as that was happening and you saw those guys starting to ascend, that you went, whoa, like I've been here, like killing myself for years. And how did you guys already get here?
Well, so it also coincided with my first neck injury.
Right.
So I felt confident. I'm like, right, I'm ahead of these guys. 'Cause
Right.
they can't work like I can.
Right.
And to be fair, at that stage they couldn't. So I felt confident. I was like, if anything, I'll be leading this pack, because I've been working longer. I've been here longer. I have more experience. I've cut more promos. I've been in there with Eddie Guerrero and Hung. I've been, I've done the TLC matches. Then the neck happened. And in that year and change off, that's when those guys all exploded. And so when I came back, it was an entirely new, scenario in front of me. And I was like, oh man, now I'm playing catch up.
Yeah.
Because in that time, those guys have made those leaps. Randy, Dave, and John, and I'm like, Brock. Man, okay.
And also it's like, unfortunately for you, 4 of the most naturally gifted and talented people that have ever put on a pair of tights.
Insane crop.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So then it became, all right, now I've been off that time, and I'm coming back from a double fusion neck surgery. So is my work going to be the same? Am I going to be able to do this and that? And I still don't know what the character necessarily is. Okay, I got to get down to work.
Yeah.
And then I realized, okay, well, the babyface realm is clearly filled. Now the crowds are booing me because I didn't change anything. I got a path here. Then real life adds to that. And I went, right, I want to be the Roddy Piper of my generation. I want to be the Macho Man of my generation.
And luckily, you had a Hogan when Cena showed up, right?
Exactly. And then I was like, oh, okay, got it. And then the first time we touched, I was like, oh, okay, we click.
You knew right away.
Not only do we click from and John trusted me.
Mm-hmm.
That was big because he knew I didn't want to try and out wrestle him.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to try and make him look stupid. I didn't want the crowd to cheer me.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted him to be Hulk Hogan. And I wanted to be Roddy Piper.
Because you can't be Roddy Piper if you don't have a Hulk Hogan.
Exactly.
Right.
And there can't be a Hogan without a Piper.
Right.
And I know
Right.
that. So
Right.
this ain't a bad place to be. And at some point, then I'm going to have to be that for Batista and for Undertaker and for Rey Mysterio. And there's job security in that.
Yeah.
You know? What it also did, though, is now I was doing it with a double fusion. So now I'm wrestling Kane, Undertaker, Batista, Big Show, Cena, who's taking the bumps, the heel champ.
Of course.
So that's the job,
Right.
right?
Right.
But that started to slowly but surely take its toll.
How did the initial? I mean, maybe it was an amalgamation of things, but what required the initial surgery?
It was an amalgamation, It was a lot of the stupid bumps I took in the indies where I was landing on my head or I was wrestling in a 10 by 10 ring. There's no way not to land on your head.
Yeah.
Because I'm 6'4". Do the math.
Yeah.
I'd have to get suplex corner to corner in some of these rings. And so you got dropped on your head a lot. And so I think that, I'd messed up my neck a couple times as a kid too. BMX, head first into a tree, sprained my neck.
Yeah.
Track meet, running down a hill, full tilt, about to break the county record, cut a flip, land on a rock head first, knock myself out, sprained my neck.
Jeez.
Did a backflip off the coffee table when I was 4 years old,
That's
landed on my
one thing.
head, sprained my neck.
At
So I
4?
sprained my neck 3 times before I ever started wrestling.
Yeah.
So I have a history.
And then we went ahead and did all these TLC matches and everything
It's
else.
kind of,
and-
but it's not out of the norm. I
Yeah.
guess is really what it boils down to.
and that's part of also probably being in your 20s. Like everything counts.
Oh, yeah.
You just haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a toll yet.
Right.
Come on, I just
I'm
get
special.
up and I go, okay, right, and I keep moving.
Right.
But it was an amalgamation. It was the ladder matches. It was the TLC matches. It was really what I can point to. It was like at one point I was taking like 15 Germans a night.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I'm teaming up against Chris and Kurt, I'm literally taking like 10 to 15 Germans.
Yes.
And I prided myself on how I took them. I got up there, right? And eventually that takes a toll. There's no good way to take a German suplex. That's why when I see guys like come up and do the fighting spirit after them, I'm like, why would you do that?
Don't do it.
They suck.
Don't do it.
So just sell it.
Yeah.
Because they do hurt.
And I think too that like, and you tell me, because you've done it all. You've wrestled quote unquote deathmatch style. You just did it on the grandest stage of them all at WrestleMania, right?
If I was going to, I was going to be there.
It's going to count, right? But look, barbed wire and fire and tables and all that stuff that you guys did. I'm a deathmatch fan. I love that stuff. But also part of me, as I watch and as I listen to guys tell stories of their injuries and what puts them on the shelf, I go like, it seems like a lot of that stuff is harder to watch and will leave scars. But the stories that you always hear of people actually getting injured and the stuff that actually takes a toll on a career is that kind of more strong style, like work rate stuff.
Yeah.
Is that right?
You're taking more bumps.
Yeah.
And bumps are what get you.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of like hardcore deathmatch if it has a story.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, and
absolutely.
That's where I felt like Mick and I had a story. So that's why I really enjoyed that. The ladders, you can't bump off a ladder and not expect to pay a price. And it just so happens that I bumped off a lot of ladders.
Yeah.
But more than anything, it was really just taking a lot of Germans and a lot of big bumps and a lot of choke slams and a lot of they're just really big bumps from really strong individuals, and no matter how you land, Batista's hitting you with a Batista bomb. There's some torque on that bad boy.
Yeah.
Because he's the Incredible Hulk.
Right.
He's Drax, but
yeah.
but you know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
he
of course.
physically is that.
Of course. And it's not like if it's softened, and it looks softened to the audience. It's like, what are we watching now?
And you also know what
Yeah.
it is. You know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
You know that's what this is. Ron Simmons' Spinebuster is gonna make you feel like you got to crap your pants. Just is. Just
and
is.
sometimes you might.
I never did.
Congrats.
Never did.
Congrats.
Never did. Never dropped one in the ring.
Congrats on that.
Yeah.
Is there anything, how nerve-wracking is it to know this table has to be lit on fire? We're at WrestleMania. I really hope that this table ends up on fire. And I mean, just the physics of it, that like sometimes a lighter doesn't work.
Yeah.
Sometimes the lighter fluid doesn't catch.
Yeah.
Sometimes like that seems to me extremely stressful. And then also I have to think about the fact that I have to now fall into that.
That was at a stage where I truly didn't think.
At
I
all.
just went, no, it's going to happen. That was my mindset. And
The power of positive thinking that
I
ends in
guess,
first-degree burns.
Yeah, I'm manifesting getting burned. Like, I don't know, but I truly at that stage, and even still to this day, like when I go to the ring, I'm not nervous. And I've heard people say that means you don't care, or if you stop getting nervous, you don't care. I never did. I don't know why, except the only thing I can think is that felt like one place where I felt confident. I know this thing. I've been watching this since I can remember. I've studied this. I've studied tapes. I still do. You know, I'm still watching Bockwinkel and Hennig, AWA. I'm still watching Terry Funk All Japan. Like
And
I'm
finding new
still-
things?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every time.
That's awesome.
And I continue to do that. So when I'm in there, I'm like, all right, this is where I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
So I've never been nervous. I've always been excited.
Yeah. And I think that that's also, you know, I mean, it's a great way to be, especially when you've done, like we've said, as much as you've done, and you should at this point feel fairly confident in what you're doing. I mean, my favorite match of yours, and maybe it was because I was in attendance, so, you know, you have that connection with it, is the Undertaker match, is the WrestleMania match. And I hadn't thought about it until I was thinking about this conversation, that's not just you headlining WrestleMania as champion, which, by the way, the whole story of the Mick Foley match was that he didn't let you headline WrestleMania as champion. That was your dream. We'd established that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was. So now, you know, we're going full circle if you want to go that deep. But it was not just that you were headlining against The Undertaker and that you were getting introduced second, but you guys had to follow Sean and Rick.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And I didn't watch the rest of the show.
The stuff that came on before you
Nope.
didn't.
I was like, nope, I'm going to stay right here where I need to be
In my world.
in my world and do my thing, because I can't let that flavor or color what I'm going to do or try and live up to something, live up to what we thought was Ric Flair's last match, because that's going to be its own thing. Ours is not going to be that. So what's our story going to be? Okay, well, it's our first televised singles match ever. Only our second singles match ever. We'd wrestled in Chile for like 45 minutes just to see how we felt. And that was about a month before WrestleMania. So the story I wanted to try and tell is that this guy, who is still undefeated at this point, because I got stretchered out of the ladder match. That was the only way I was trying to save an undefeated streak against an undefeated streak.
Sure.
Because they already said we're going to you and Taker next year. I was like, then I should probably win this match if we're going to do. Okay, cool. Right. We're going this direction. Cool. All right. So my whole way of thinking going into that is, this is the guy who has the counter for the counter for the counter. And he'll counter the last ride, and he'll counter this, and he'll counter that. And then if Taker tries it again, he can re-counter it again. That was always my mindset when working a guy like Taker, because can't get in and slug it out.
Right.
So what is the story? Okay, I have to be a bit of a technician and a chess player.
And what would the ultimate opportunist do? The ultimate opportunist wouldn't try to do something that he was going to be bested at.
No.
He would just do the thing that he could do better, which is watch tape
Yeah.
of The Undertaker.
And try and be smarter.
Yes.
That was, you know, the thing I always said at that iteration of the character is like, you can be stronger, bigger, stronger, faster. You're not going to be smarter.
Right.
That was always the mentality I tried to take with that character, is I can always come up with something.
Which is interesting because when you describe the Ultimate Opportunist that way, you see a little Ultimate Opportunist in MJF.
Yeah.
With his whole psychology of especially when he was a villain. Does any part of you bear a certain responsibility for having Zack Ryder in a WrestleMania main event?
Yeah, but Hawkins got one too.
That's true. That's so much worth it.
No, but you know what? I love any time that if my character is a reason for other characters to get involved. I love that. You know, I mean, the La Familia had a great little run there, like holding SmackDown down, and the fact that those guys and Chavo, I got to work with Chavo, and then here comes Vicky out of this whole thing. That to me that's a blast.
Yes,
I love seeing new characters get a chance, get a shot, and if I can help be a catalyst for that, that's amazing, because I think back to Bad News Brown, and I think back to those guys and Bret Hart and Michael Hayes and all of these guys who really nurtured me along the way. But I never really had anybody kind of take me under their wing on TV character-wise. So to be able to do that I really, really enjoy that. So yeah, when I look across the ring and see a Nick Wayne, I'm like, hell yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Was the Edgeheads a difficult thing to make happen, or is that something that you pitched and were able to?
No, those guys came to me.
Yeah.
Hawkins came to me and he goes, I have this idea. What's your email? I was like, here it is. So he shot it to me. I was like, damn, this is a hell of an idea. All right, let me run a flagpole and see what we get. And everybody else thought it was a good idea too.
And boom.
And there we were.
There you are.
And then that day, Pittsburgh, I believe it was, Armageddon, they're getting my tattoos painted on. And I was like, what is happening? Okay, we're doing this. They got the same tights, everything.
Dude, no, it's so great because as somebody that like Doink at WrestleMania 9 is still to me one of the greatest wrestling angles of all time. I'll never forget sitting there and my dad doesn't even like wrestling. He thinks it's dumb, but he was losing his mind at how funny the whole thing was. Another Doink comes out. So getting to see that again, except with you, who's like the last person, like there's not, you're a human being. Like, how could you have an identical?
It's not like I'm wearing a green afro
Right.
or like, how do you do that? Well, you get two guys who look similar enough.
Right. Paint the tattoos on.
Paint the tattoos on, get in the same gear, and they look enough alike.
Right.
That we can at least here get by with it.
Yeah.
And then it kind of became like we were doing the twin magic before the Bellas.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And you weren't even twins. It's,
Not even triplets.
No, it's phenomenal. When did you develop a connection with Vince? Because obviously at some point you had to, right? And you became one of the top tier people. But at what point in your career was it one of those things where you guys had a connection?
You know, we were always civil. And so we always, but not a connection per se. You know, I think what he thought is that I was a nice guy and maybe too nice a guy. And it wasn't really until that whole, real life thing kind of blew up in my face that he went, oh, maybe he's a bit of an asshole too. And I truly think that was kind of the tipping point for him to see more than just the smiling guy who's happy to be here. And it was, again, that promo in Pittsburgh, I think, is really what kind of built our connection, because he watched it and I didn't know he was watching it. And he came up to me after. And that's, I think, for him when he saw, right, I got something here. More than just that guy that I can put in matches and have good wrestling matches, but what else? Can he be that guy who will get under someone's skin?
Yeah.
Will be able to get under that audience's skin and elicit that kind of reaction. I think that, honestly, that promo again, I think that was the moment where there's more here, and then we started to develop a friendship from there.
That's great that like the moment that it clicked in for you was also the moment that it clicked in for him, because what you don't want is for it to click in for you and he's like, nah, or for something that you don't like
and
to click in for him.
That has been the case before, since, after that. But again, okay, let's sit down and find the happy medium here.
What was something that you did that you were like, oh no, what do you mean he liked it?
Well, with the initial inception of the Judgment Day, You know, I really
interesting.
I wanted it to be these underutilized talents that I thought could be far more than what they were being utilized for. Rhea Ripley's a star, and Damian Priest is a star, and Finn Balor's a star, and so initially it was brought to me like, hey, we want to kind of start a new brood or something that feels somewhat like that. I'm like, who would it be? I was like, Ripley and Priest. We want it to be 4. I was like, Balor. Okay, well, then it was like, we want somebody really huge. I was like, okay, all right. And then I got a text 2 weeks later. How about Balor? I'm like, yep, amazing idea.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Well, that's great and everything, but we're swimming upstream with you, and we're going to have to turn you back babyface because Cody's hurt and Randy's hurt, and now we need a babyface. Like, right, okay.
Yeah.
I'm DH, got it. But it was, I wanted to change everything about my character. Because I was like, okay, here's this guy who's come back. They know the story, all of these things. I can't have any similarities to what I've been doing, to anything that they've liked. Right, so I'm going to chop the hair. I'm going to start wearing suits. I'm going to change the music. I'm going to take away all the elements that they love and try and flip it on its head. I thought it might work, and maybe with more time, you know, because it was, I think it was Hell in a Cell. We had a 6-person tag. And that was the first night where it was like, oh, okay. Oh, they're starting to get with this now. They're starting to understand what their job is in this, is to hate this thing and to hate this guy. But it was going to be some work. It was really going to be some work, and they're far better off after that. But that all got sped up again because of the injuries.
Right.
So Cody's down, torn pec. Randy's down back.
Right.
Okay. We were going to have Balor cause the mutiny a year later. That got sped up to tomorrow. Like, right. Okay.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I remember that because I think I might have talked to you about it when it was like, that was that moment where, like, at the end of the match, Balor was, like, beaten.
We beat Balor.
But you stood over him almost like a line protecting.
And then the next night.
Yes. No,
join,
I remember.
And then
Yeah,
it's the turn. But there was elements of it that I, like, at one point it was talked about, you know, a cauldron with bubbling black fluid, and I'm holding a pitchfork. And I was like, whoa. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Because that's not going to work.
Right.
And then there was one week they wanted us to float to the ring. I was like, what? And they said, well, no, we'll put it on like a dolly. And then shoot.
I was worried we would actually have to float.
Yeah. Okay, I don't have to pull that off. But then I'm sitting on a throne, and Priest is like full cores engaged because he's basically surfing, holding on to this thing, and we're going down. And all I felt as we're going down was like, this is Spinal Tap. This is Spinal Tap. Okay. And then I got to the back. I was like, yeah, I don't think that entrance works, guys. But it's that, okay, I'll give it a shot.
Sure.
Give
Got
it a shot.
to.
Because, hey, it ain't my sandbox.
Right.
And I don't cut the checks.
Right.
This is what you want. I'll try and make it work. But I'll also be the first one to tell you, that didn't work. So we probably shouldn't do that anymore, right?
Right.
Okay, good, right. It's one of those.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so your Rumble return, I mean, the Rumble return 2010 is great, and obviously so much better, I would imagine, than the return from neck fusion, in the sense that everybody reacts great and it's awesome, right? But the 2020 Rumble return is, I mean, it's up there with the greatest returns of all time. You talk about it at the beginning of this conversation, you talked about the first notes and people reacting to it. Yeah. That's one of those, like, I was talking to somebody who's like a newer wrestling fan. And that's one of the fun things right now about being a wrestling fan, I think, is that I feel like I interact with more new wrestling fans than maybe my entire life.
Sure.
Like, there's just more new people watching wrestling now than ever. And they were like, you know, that was the first time I understood, like, when people talk about pops or reactions or what. When Edge returned, I was like, oh, that's the sound. Oh, that's the feeling. That's the, like,
yeah.
I mean, that has to be, is that the best single moment?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how I top that, honestly. Just because of all of the dominoes that fell to get to that moment. And people only know the tip of the iceberg, you know, everything that went into making that a reality. And it was all very, it's like a dream sequence in my mind. You know, I still kind of picture it like that. It was really overwhelming, really satisfying too, though, you know, because I visualize, right? And I visualize everything, you know. So if I have an idea, I'll see it in my brain. I'll see it happening. I'll see it playing out. And that was one of those, I saw it playing out, and it had been 9 years. And that was the first instance where I was like, man, I hope they react. I don't know, because it's been 9 years. This isn't like 9 months.
Right.
This isn't 9 weeks. This is 9 years. Like the ship, I've said, it wasn't on the horizon. It was like on the other side of the world. It was gone. So it was overwhelming. And it was truly one of those, that's one of those, if you could bottle it and hand it out to everyone in the world would be a way better place.
Yeah.
Because the euphoria that I felt, every emotion that I felt, it was just so overwhelming. You can see it in my eyes. Like, I'm just overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it. And it was, you know, as much as main eventing WrestleMania, all of those things, that night, I don't think can be topped, because it also wasn't supposed to happen. None of this was supposed to happen. So I say, like, even if this comeback ended that night, success. Because that wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah, I got that.
I was told, like, if I fall, I could die. If I get hit from behind, you know, like, that's how susceptible it was at a certain point. So anything I do from that point forward, you know, I could be, you know, an enhancement talent for WCW, and it would still be a victory.
Yeah.
Because I'm not supposed to be doing this.
Did you, as you said, that you had to condition yourself to being okay with the fact that you will never wrestle again? Did you have to be careful mentally in allowing yourself to believe that it was a possibility?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. From the emotional standpoint, for
That's
sure.
what I mean. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then there's
I
the
can't get my
physical
hopes up.
standpoint.
Yeah.
You know, so there was, Beth always said it was like I'd hit the next boss, and it would be each doctor, and I'd make that clearance, and then I'd make that clearance. And the big boss was Dr. Maroon, who medically disqualified me. We both figured, okay, that's probably where we hit the wall in this whole thing. Hey, it was worth a shot.
Right.
Right? You don't know unless you try. And I'm not one of those people that is going to be okay with not trying. I have to give it a shot. If you tell me no, if you tell me it's not going to work, okay, but I tried. So I truly believe, flying up to Pittsburgh, like, okay, I'm probably getting the kibosh here. And when I didn't, and Beth was taking off for a flight down to NXT, and I went, I am cleared. And she just, now she's in the air. Yeah. And she didn't have Wi-Fi, so she couldn't respond until she landed in Orlando. But it was all just a lot of moments like that where it was becoming more and more a reality. And I understood, like, oh, this is actually going to happen now. Okay, now I got to wrap my mind around, how's it going to feel taking moves? Now I got to get in the ring.
Right.
And start figuring this out.
Right.
And see what I'm capable of, and see what the limitations are, and all of those, you know, variables that I hadn't had to think about yet. It was just getting cleared. Okay, now I got cleared. Now can I still do this? Let's find out.
Yeah. Let's find out. And, you know, and they did that great documentary about it they put on Peacock and everything. I probably shouldn't ask you, because you probably don't want anybody asking questions. Did you get to keep the ring?
No.
No. They took the ring
They
back.
took the ring. But I expected it. I was like, how much time you figure until they snag this back? But
I almost didn't want to ask you, because I didn't want to, you know.
But I got an AEW one on order.
You do?
Yeah. I want to be able to work and stay, keep the rust out in the dimensions I'm actually using. So it's
that makes a lot of sense.
It's a wider apron.
Yep.
The ropes are closer together. The ropes, I think, are a little bit lower. You know, so those are all things I didn't realize until I was at Wrestle Dream hitting the ropes and going, oh, these are different. These are cables. This is a different thing.
That's right, because you couldn't
Yeah.
exactly get in there
Nope.
the day before and
No.
or the morning of, and
No.
because nobody could see you.
What you saw at Wrestle Dream was happening real time.
Wow.
Me hitting the ropes for the first time. Okay. Oh, and there's everything's torn up. Right. This spear's going to suck. You know, all of those things are running through my mind as I'm about to do them. And it really wasn't even until I was working Luchasaurus, my first match, and he was shooting me to the corner. I was like, oh, that is different. I got to lean down a little bit to take this buckle. Otherwise, I'm going to, you know, but I'm having to do that within a nanosecond.
Wow.
So I'm getting one of those rings. That way I know exactly what I'm playing with.
That's probably the way to do it.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way to do it, because
Well, it's like if you're a race car driver and you're racing Porsches and it's like, oh, I'm going to hop in a Ferrari and just
Right.
see. It's going to be different.
Of course it's going to be different. Yeah. So speaking of different, right? When you get back to WWE,
Yeah.
about 5 weeks in,
I know.
it's like, hey, I'm going to get the best reaction I've ever had in my career. And you better figure out how to bottle that up, because you ain't getting no more of those for a while. You find, I mean, that's the craziest of all the good fortune that brought you there.
Yeah.
To then go, okay, and by the way, we're going to have to figure out how to do this beginning of this run with no audience.
With no people.
No people are going to be here. So I know you're just trying to knock off the ring rust, but also how do you do it with no adrenaline, no response, no anything? And oh yeah, your first match is a giant blood feud.
Yeah. It was, obviously there's bigger things, right?
Of course. Goes without saying, 100%.
And so I'd hang my hat on that and go, really, at the end of the day, does it matter that this guy is able to jump around in tights again?
Mm-hmm.
And do I feel sorry for myself because I don't get to do it in front of audiences? Well, big picture, let's face it. Let's worry about how is everyone, right? But then you get to working and you start going, whew, man, what a time to come back, you know? Huh, interesting. Okay, I got to wrap my mind around this, but hey, I'm doing it again.
Right.
And
Wasn't
again,
supposed to get to do this.
that's what I hung my hat on.
Yeah.
I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I'm doing it in front of TV screens. Okay. I'm doing it in front of 50 NXT students. Okay. But I'm doing it.
I mean, you were one of the ones who got to do it in front of literally no one. That first WrestleMania,
Ooh, man.
you did it in front of
So-
Michael Cole and Corey Graves, and that's it. Some cameramen.
Rewind back. I had the first segment of the pandemic, a promo in the ring.
Oh, wow.
So I'm standing in an empty warehouse and they're playing a package, and Scotty Sweaty is my camera guy. Is like, Sweaty, I'm coming down the barrel. He was like, what? Because you don't do that, right?
Yeah.
But I had the realization as the show was counting down. I was like, I have to.
Who am I talking to?
Who am I talking to?
Yeah.
I got to talk to Randy.
Yeah.
And hopefully the people feel that, because I'm essentially talking to them too.
Yeah.
But this is going to be different. And as I was doing it, I started treating it like a monologue or like an audition,
Sure.
and trying to come at it from that direction. So every promo I did from that point forward, I tried to come at it from what I learned in acting and what I learned from auditioning, and tried to bring that into the promos.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really fun.
Yeah.
That was really, really fun, because there was no audience to try and hijack it. There was no audience, you know, so that became a new challenge to me. And then I okay, right, this could be awesome, actually. I can get different layers of character, and I can do different things. I can different ticks, different tells, different, like, all on purpose. But now I can place them in there, and maybe now they'll get noticed, because there's nothing to detract from that attention.
And we're just watching on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're watching now what this guy's doing with his face, with his inflections, with his delivery. That to me then became the really fun aspect of it. Now, I also remember hearing one of the crew guys fart while I was taking a move.
That happened. That's not just like a.
That happened.
Okay.
That happened.
Because that's one of those things that you could say, like,
No,
imagine.
it happened. And I heard the laughs after it happened. And I'm we're taping a match.
Yeah.
And I'm like, right, that just happened. I heard that.
That's where we're at.
And that bump really hurt.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean-
it really, really hurt.
It's like a
because
fart
of
in
that.
church.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, except it was the Tropicana field. Man, like you think back now and just, but kudos to the wrestling industry
Unbelievable.
because it never stopped.
Yes.
It never stopped.
Not for 1 week, not for one
It
show.
kept going. And both companies
Yeah.
and multiple companies and just trucked along. Because what do you need when there's a worldwide pandemic?
Entertainment.
When you're sitting in your house, bored to death, beard to your belly button, whatever.
By the
it
way,
is.
paranoid about going outside.
I don't wanna go to the
Everybody's
grocery
angry at
store.
everyone.
Yeah.
I need an escape.
If you sniff,
Yeah.
and you got the scarlet letter and just all of those things. But hey, I can sit down and I can still watch wrestling.
Yes.
Cool. We all continued to make a living
Yes.
and never stopped making a living. I didn't stop. There wasn't 1 week I didn't get a paycheck during a worldwide pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I look at it and go, man, that's a testament not only to the people who really run this industry and they're bullheaded, right?
Mm-hmm.
And thank God for it
Mm-hmm.
because they kept this thing going. In a time when I truly feel like people needed something. I remember watching like some show, I forget what maybe it was like NYPD Blue or something, I don't know. And the actors were Zooming from their living rooms, reading the scripts. Right?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, I guess it's something,
it's something, but
it's
still like
not.
what? We get these guys in the ring. There's no people, but okay, maybe now there's TV screens.
Right.
And now they're okay, all right. I can't say enough about the entire wrestling industry for what we were all able to pull off
Yeah.
and keep doing in a time where I feel like the world really, really needed it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of experimenting going on with how stories can be told and everything. And listen,
I know where you're going.
I'm a fan. Okay? I wasn't in the build-up. I'll never forget watching Monday Night Raw. And you and Randy are in the ring.
Yeah.
And Charlie's in between you. And she looks straight ahead and goes, "This may very well be the greatest wrestling match ever." And I go, "What did she just say?"
Oh, yeah.
Because you also know, as somebody, like, I know when I
That
hear
was
something,
fed. You know that one was fed.
that's not going anywhere. Like, I go, the what? and then the graphic comes and the banners are getting made. It's the greatest. I go, what?
So I'll never forget. I had just walked my dog.
Mm-hmm.
I got a call from Heyman. He's like, "So we got this idea." I was like, "Yeah, that's never a good sign." You and Randy, it'll be the greatest wrestling match ever. And I'm like, I mean, it'll be good. Yeah, we'll have a great match. No, Vince wants it to be the greatest wrestling match ever. And that's when it started to dawn on me, like, oh, well, that's not possible because it's subjective. And what might be my favorite, now you can say my most favorite wrestling match. You can't say the greatest. No such thing.
Right.
It's not the greatest band. There's not the greatest song. There's not the greatest movie. Because for you, Raging Bull might be your greatest movie. Sure. Hey, it might be Point Break for me.
Right.
Whatever. Like, there's no such thing. So I was like, what are you doing to us here? Right. Yeah, like, now at this point, this is technically, it's my third match back, by the way, too.
Right. And this is a company that's never used the word wrestling once.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden we're putting on the greatest.
And we're having the greatest one now.
The greatest one.
So if we're going to do it.
That's going to be the greatest.
And I just remember thinking, my God, oh my God. But at the same time, okay, it's a challenge.
Yes.
So how do I come at this? Because Randy's just like, I don't know, dude. And I know you will, so whatever. You know, like he's just washing his hands of it already. So I'm like, great, okay. What can we do? What can we do? Okay, let's make it a love letter to wrestling. And you were one of the very, very few people that got that.
Yeah, I mean,
Right from jump, you got that.
I remember watching it, and like the spark hitting like halfway in. It was like when the familiar spots started showing. Like when the mic came down, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, oh, I guess it's gonna be like an old school wrestling match, you know. And the Fink's voice was on. I was like, oh, okay. It was when the familiar spots started coming from both of you that I was like, oh. They're not saying this is the greatest wrestling match that's ever happened. The greatest wrestling match is almost a stipulation. It's almost like it's a thing in and of itself.
What I tried to think of is, what are the elements of some of the greatest matches I've seen?
Right.
Let's pull those in.
Right.
So I was like, hey, Charles, long sleeve shirt, bow tie. Cool? Yeah. All right.
That's awesome.
Can we get Fink's MSG thing to come down? Can we get his voice? Yeah, we can. All right. Okay. Amazing. And then it's just like, well, we just got to go out and work. And if we hit some different finishers from over the years,
Yes.
then maybe people will start to understand that it's a love letter to wrestling is really
Right.
what it's supposed to be, because it's not possible. It's not possible because there's no audience.
Yeah.
Like-
well, we could do it better without you.
How are we going to do that? There's no audience. But I'm really proud of that night. And I'm proud of it because we got thrown into the worst or the most difficult scenario I can think of. I can't think of too many others that are more difficult than that in terms of living up to some sort of expectation that has been placed on this thing that has nothing to do with you. And going, okay, the promoter is trying to promote. I get it. But damn, talk about like we are pushing this boulder up this mountain.
Yeah.
And it's, how do you get it there? You know? So it was really just trying to wrap my mind around a different way to come at it. And then as I'm driving down from Asheville to Orlando, for all of those tapings, no cars on the road. It's The Walking Dead. Like I'm on 75 and I didn't pass a car.
It's wild.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm driving and I'm going, okay, what do I do? What do I do? Ooh, what if we treated this like, a gaming, and first person? And like, what would an audience member feel like if they were actually taking an RKO? So what if I wear a GoPro? And what if I get RKO'd? And we use that in a replay. I'm thinking just for replays.
Right.
Right? So that's my mindset. Is
Right.
like, hey, maybe for replays, we can get this. That'd be a cool little element.
Right.
So-
Right. Because if you do it in a replay, you can still kind of maintain that suspension of disbelief.
Enough, right? So we go out there, we go 48 minutes, come to the back. They're like, you guys went 48 minutes. I was like, really? Man, it felt like 15. That was fun. We had a blast. And then it was like, you still want to do those pickup shots? I was like, well, we're here. We might as well see if they work. If they don't, hey, no biggie, right? So we do the pickups. We get cold in between. And as we're doing the pickups, I take the RKO, blow my tricep in the pickups.
Oh.
And so I get home, I have surgery. They send me the match with
I wanted to take an RKO with a GoPro on, and
it's my own fault. It's my own stupid fault. But I also forgot in the time that I was retired, I had my wrist fused. So my wrist doesn't bend.
you forgot your wrist was fused?
No, I just didn't
Consider it.
factor in
Yeah.
taking moves. Certain moves are going to be different with a fused wrist.
Sure.
So like I can go here, but I can't. Just won't go.
Wow.
So you take an RKO for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait a second. Pop.
Oof.
Right? So I get home, post-surgery, they send me the match, our 48 through, and I loved it. I was like, all right, no such thing as greatest wrestling match ever, but I love that. And they were like, we want to add sound. We want to add an audience. I was like, ugh, okay, all right, okay. We're trying new stuff. Cool. We got shit on for it. Then everybody else started doing it. Okay, fine. But then Vince wanted the different camera shots,
GoPro.
and I hated them.
Yeah.
I hated them because when I saw it it took me out of the match. I was like, it totally takes me out of the match. Let's just keep the straight match. Yeah, but he really loves them. It's like, right. So then it became, well, they cut and they stopped and this and that pissed me off so much
Because you did 48.
Yeah,
You did
straight through.
Yeah.
And then they added in those 3 shots.
Right.
And but what I will say, and my only, if I try not to live with regrets, but if there's one thing I wish could have happened is to have that match in front of an audience.
Sure.
If we had just do what we do 48 minutes in front of an audience, man,
Would have been awesome.
it would have been so much fun. And
Yeah.
it was still fun.
Yeah.
But that might be the biggest challenge I feel like I've ever faced. And that was one where emotionally going into it, I was like, whew, all right.
But that has to feel very like a big accomplishment that you're like, okay, you know what? Say what you want. I figured it out.
Tried it.
Right?
You know, I'd like to see you give it a shot.
Yeah.
Go for it. And I'll watch.
Yeah.
And I'll applaud you after. But it's a thing.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, I felt like, okay, they put us in this position because they feel like in some respect we can pull something out of it. And that's a testament to Randy and I.
Yeah.
And the confidence that they had in us. But man, whew.
Yeah. One of the, it was funny what we were describing before about storytelling in the pandemic, I think greatly benefited Roman and the beginning of that bloodline story because there was so much nuance and everything, right? And I think when you talk about your WrestleMania moments, right, it's TLC, it's Undertaker, it's Foley, you know, there's a bunch of them, but also based on what this run has become, the fact that you were in the first bloodline era Roman Reigns WrestleMania main event is pretty massive to me.
Just being in the first WrestleMania main event with people back.
Yeah.
That to me is pretty cool to look back on now because it feels like decades ago.
Yeah.
It really, really does. It's crazy how long ago that feels.
Yeah.
But to be a part of that and just to feel an audience again and be reminded, okay, right, this is when I first came back and that Rumble, this was the feeling. That was really, that felt rewarding.
Yeah.
Just from an emotional standpoint. Sure, yeah, your main event WrestleMania, that's amazing. But just to get people back.
We made it.
We made it through.
Yeah.
And we're still stumbling, but we got through the worst of it.
Yeah.
Easy for me to say. But I'm sure there's people that don't feel that way.
Of course.
But at least at that stage, it felt like, okay, we're coming through. Because now at least we have 25,000 back. That's a win. Let's take it and build.
Yeah.
And then I think Roman and I, we were the first couple of shows back because we did the first SmackDown in front of a full audience in Houston. And then we worked Dallas, Money in the Bank.
Yes.
And that was a full audience.
Yeah. So
those first ones were huge just in terms of like feeling that and hearing that again.
Yeah. Yeah. After Roman, after the people are back and everything, you brought back Brood Edge, which I loved, you know, the music coming back and everything. And it's funny because, again, it's going back to the details. And I have privileged information because one of your loved ones told me.
One. I don't think it was Lyrica Ruby.
But I don't know if people realize the level of detail that you're operating on. True or false? You're coming out as for true. Okay, couple of things. True or false? You save everything, and it was time to bring back Brood Edge, and it was so important to you that Brood Edge looked like Brood Edge and wore what Brood Edge would wear, that you found original Brood Edge sunglasses from 1998. Brought them to wear them, but key, took out a paint pen and painted them to match your gear. True or false?
True. True. And so I had one pair left. One pair. The rest had cracked. Either the people taking back gear stole them, whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Because that happened a lot over the years. So I had one pair left. Right? And they're brown. Like shit brown.
Right.
And I'm like, well,
I can't wear.
that. Yeah. So I like to be crafty. So
I consider myself a bit of an artiste.
just crafty. We'll go with crafty. And I got a paint marker and a flat matte black, very, very hard to chip. And I painted them. And because I needed them to look the way they did back then.
Right. So us like I mean I love ring worn stuff, but at first I go like you can't ruin something that was ring worn, but it's like well technically now it's double ring worn.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I have so I have a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah.
When is this going to drop?
A few days from now, so next
Okay.
week or yeah.
So here's a little tidbit.
Okay.
I decided for this match with Jay tomorrow
Yeah.
to wear my WrestleMania 22 attire
Awesome.
because I still fit in it.
Yeah.
I still got it.
Yeah.
Except, and here was the caveat, is I had the pants, but again, back to people stealing stuff, somebody stole the Dickies work shirt
Really?
that I wore at WrestleMania because I started wearing it on house shows.
Oh,
Rather than wear the trench coat,
sure.
it's like, I'll wear this. It's a lot easier to pack. So, and there, it's not 45 pounds, so that's nice.
Yeah.
So, but one time it was Lake Charles, Louisiana. Somebody stole it.
Oh.
Yeah. So I got to work this week, and the hardest part was finding a Dickies shirt, believe it or not. So finally, Walmart Supercenter in Asheville, North Carolina had one. And I dragged the girls with me everywhere to find this thing. And then I taught myself how to hammer rivets into shirts and through leather and all of these things.
Because you're crafty.
Because I'm crafty.
Yeah.
I'm crafty.
A little crafty.
So I basically taught myself as I went. I bought 3 shirts so that I could screw up. And
Smart.
and I pulled up a picture. I was like, right, okay, how do I? So I learned how to use double-sided rivets as opposed to single-sided.
Oh.
And I went through and I punched all of the holes for the star, got the leather, cut it, worked it in, and then put the R with all these little and just hammering it, and it was a process. But
So when people see it,
I wanted it to look like, oh, he's coming out WrestleMania 22 gear. We know what happens then. Okay.
of course.
So that was the mindset, honestly, with that. But then it became a challenge to, I don't have the shirt, damn it, I forgot, somebody stole it. I got to recreate it. I just got to make it myself.
Right.
So
I mean, it goes back to it might not happen, but the reason it doesn't happen is not going to be because my lack of
not
trying.
because I didn't try.
Yeah.
So, right, I'm going to try and figure out how you hammer with a mallet these things. And there's a whole section of Michael's. So I just went and I just took stuff. I didn't even know if it was going to work or if I needed it, but I just started pulling stuff off the shelf. I walked up there and I was like, yeah. And then I got home and started figuring it out.
This is the level of geek I am. I just realized that now Mattel did an action figure of you from that match.
Yeah.
And that means that AEW is going to be able to do
Can
an
now
action
do it.
figure. That's
Yes.
so fun.
Yes.
That's so fun.
Everything I do, like I haven't worn the same gear twice since I've come back.
That's wild.
Not once. And I always think of it from the, okay, action figures.
Yeah, of course.
Because I loved my LJN, right? And my Hasbro. And I loved when a guy would come out in different colors and a different, even if the design is the same, but it's a different color. And maybe that color means something. And maybe the color is a tip of the hat to this, or it's to that, but it's still distinctly Adam Copeland or Edge. But, oh, okay, he's wrestling an MSG. Maybe that's tip of the hat to Brett when he wears the pink and black.
Oh, yeah.
Right, okay. Having the Hitmen logo, but with long blonde hair, but it's also a tip of the cap to Canada.
Yeah.
And always have my girls in there and my mom's initials in there, and they'll be in the Maple Leafs or the Stars. Like, I put a lot of thought into that stuff.
It's awesome.
And it's purely just, I guess, for me.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that there's enough nerds like me out there that go, oh, okay,
Yeah.
he put some thought into this. This
Yeah.
isn't just willy-nilly thrown together. He's thinking about these things, because I do.
Yeah. When did you know, like you have your last match with Sheamus in WWE?
Yeah.
Did you truly not know what was next, or did you have a pretty good idea? There's a good chance that I'm going to head over, because like, I'm also thinking, right, not only do you have all these guys, but Christian Jay is, and I've said this in my opinion, doing some of, if not the best work in his career now.
Yeah.
Did you go, okay, I'm not supposed to be able to climb any of these mountains right now. I just climbed all of these. And when I say mountains, I mean Rollins and Balor and Styles and Roman and all these things that you got to do. Do you know there's a whole bunch of mountains over there? I'm probably going to go climb those. Or did you truly go, I have no idea what's next?
I had no idea. I had 3 choices, I thought.
Yeah.
I can retire, which was a very, very, as the match was happening with Shamo, I was like, man, I'm loving this. I am loving every bit of this. We're beating the crap out of each other, but and the crowd, and I'm home.
Yeah.
And just all of the things, right? And the Leafs collaborated with me, and we got a shirt and my gear, just all of it. I truly, as we're doing the match and it's living up to everything that I hoped it would be when him and I finally got in there with each other, I'm like, this might be it. There's a very good chance that this is it. And I got to go home and think about it, because the other two scenarios, the other two mountains were the mountain I'm already on and the mountain that I feel like I already climbed, which is WWE.
Mm-hmm.
I had the offer and it was a good place to be, but I also felt like I was only going to be allowed to do so much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that could get boring. Honestly, if I'm being truly forthright, it's like, okay, come in every 3 months or 2 months or whatever it is and do a match with a Grayson Waller and MSG because, you know, they need a match for it. Great. That's a great place to be.
Yeah.
But from a creatively stimulating standpoint, it's kind of not. You know, I was able to sink my teeth into the Judgment Day story because it was a story and we were able to play it out over a year. But even then, there was still the back and forth and the back and forth. Nobody fault because it was limited dates.
Mm-hmm.
I was willing to do more. But I just felt like the place that I was going to get to do it more and be able to tell those stories was going to be with AEW because I'd be allowed to. That was really exciting. But that all didn't come and really sink into my brain until I got the match done. I got home, I got removed from it and started to think about, okay, truly what is next? And everything I said in that first promo I did. I sat down with my family. I went, so what do I do? What do you think? You know, I can retire and you'll all be sick of me. Because
you remember those 9 years? You remember how bad it was?
And I'm already involved enough in the girls' school. Like Beth and I run the drama club, and like we're like we paint the school. We do like we're there.
Awesome.
We're those people, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure the girls are already mortified, except the boys think I'm cool because now I'm Aries on top of being a wrestler,
right?
So, or do I keep working with WWE and it'll be the same? Or do I go work with Uncle Jay?
And I'm sure too that like you have a different perception of time than anybody else because it's all borrowed.
It's all borrowed.
Like you weren't supposed to get any of it.
Yeah.
Right.
And if I can do this for a limited time, because it is all limited, even though it's been 4 or 5 years back now, it's not like I got another 4 or 5 in front of me. I know I don't. We're looking at like a 2-year window here to be able to get as much done as I can get done. Tell as many stories as I can. Try and help talent along the way with that. And I need to be there more to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be there more to do that. Because even still, it's not like the schedule was back when I was riding 220, 250 days a year.
Right.
You know, at most it's 2 times a week.
Right.
You know, and that's very doable to still be the dad I need to be, to be the partner I need to be. I still have the time and the energy to do that because it's not as all-consuming as it was. I don't let it be as all-consuming as it used to be either. But by the schedule, it just becomes less all-consuming. And I wanted to be able to do as much as I could while I could.
Mm-hmm.
And that felt like the place I was going to be allowed to do that. And that's when it really, I was like, that's where I got to go. And Lyric, she just said, you're going to have more fun with him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you're absolutely right.
It's your best friend.
I am.
What is, by the way, when you look at like the dream, because you got to do all of them, tag team, teaming with your best friend,
Yeah.
teaming with your wife, or teaming with your hero. Because you,
Dude,
you son of a bitch, somehow you pulled it off. You politicked your way into teaming with your childhood best friend, teaming with your wife, and winning the tag titles with Hulk Hogan. So I mean,
and here's what's crazy about that is the Hogan thing was brought to me.
Wild.
Heyman called me and goes, what do you think about teaming with Hulk Hogan? I was like, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And you'll win the tag team title. Okay. Yeah, let's do it. And it'll air on the 4th of July. And Hogan will come out to Real American. You'll be in Boston. Like if there's a city.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
But isn't he Canadian? No, American.
I'll hold the American flag tonight. It's okay. And then it was actually Vince said, what do you think about teaming with Beth? I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I never thought that would be a thing. You know, we both never thought that would be a thing, you know, but then she comes back in the Rumble and gets her head gashed open and stays in there for 30 minutes looking like Flair from like 1984 against, you know, take a pick because he got color with everybody.
Every night.
Him and Dusty. You know, so she comes back and does stuff like that. And they're like, oh, she's still an animal. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And my whole brain starts going. Because it was initially pitched, you know, in Miz and Maurice. So I was like, that'll be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Miz is one of the most giving performers in the history of this industry. Maurice gets it. They know what their role is. Right, cool. But I always thought if we could get Beth and Rhea face to face across from each other, that can be a thing. And I felt like that could be a moment that Beth never fully got because the climate was different. And there was nobody really to match up like that. But now there was Rhea. Now there was Bianca. Now there was enough girls. But I always just thought her and Rhea would be Godzilla and King Kong, right?
Yeah.
And so to see that happen,
Yeah.
and to see the story that we told in that I Quit match and where it built to from that, I was picturing, okay, let's make this final 10 minutes a movie.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's work backwards. If I were heel Edge, what would I do? Oh, I would get her down and still do the concerto. Right. Well, okay, let's start there and then work backwards. And that was a blast just to be a part of all of that. And even that match in particular, like I had wrapped Percy Jackson the night before at 1 a.m. in Vancouver. So now 4 a.m. Philly time. So I hop on the jet, fly to Philly, land at 10:45, get Beth at the hotel, go straight to the building. I haven't slept for a day and a half at this point. I get to the building, we do the match. I'm wired, just fried, but also wired.
Uh-huh.
Couldn't sleep that night.
Uh-huh.
Fly home. I finally crashed. What was it? I guess Sunday night, and I'd been up since Friday morning. And I kind of don't remember it. Like I was just that, what am I doing? But then I think back to it and go, man, but pulled that off.
Yeah.
It's pretty damn cool. And also doesn't help that you're working a Finn Balor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. You're one of, I want to say only 3 guys as I think about it. Now, I think it's just you, Cody, and Punk that have worked under Vince, Hunter, and Tony Khan.
Yeah.
I want to say that those are the 3. I mean, and I know, you know, you were there for kind of a briefish period with Hunter, and you've only been in AEW for, you know, well, a couple months now.
A couple months.
What to you are the things that make those 3 guys good at what they do,
I think,
or uniquely good at what they do?
with Paul and Tony, they're fans.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Vince is to a degree, but I think he looks at it from more of the business and more of the global thing. But at the heart of this thing, you know, Hunter was a fan.
Right.
And Tony was a fan.
Right.
So I think they come at it from that mindset. I think that might be the difference, maybe.
Sure. Wouldn't it be cool if applies to them because they're fans?
Yeah.
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 And that's fun.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's probably the differences.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest difference I'd have to say I noticed between the 2 companies is that with WWE now, it's a publicly traded company.
Mm-hmm.
There's the sponsors. There's a lot of different things to answer to. And with AEW, there's just a lot of freedom.
You can't be running around saying "go fuck yourself" on WWE TV.
Not going to happen, right?
No,
not going to happen.
No, especially not the follow-up payoff either. Yeah. Beautiful.
None of that happening.
Yeah,
none of that happening. So in that regard, especially in this final act of my career,
Yeah.
that's a super fun place to navigate from.
Sure.
That's a great place to create from, because, right, let's just throw it at the wall, see if it sticks. If it doesn't, okay, well, it didn't. And then let's try this and let's try that. And then to, like I said, have a complete roster of people that I've never touched. Like, I've never wrestled Samoa Joe.
That's nuts. And my God, did you just make me want to see a Adam Copeland Samoa Joe match?
Me too. So there's one. Really, the only time Brian and I have been in there is WrestleMania.
Right.
Like, we had a 4-minute match on Raw once, which is like a throwaway one. And then the first time we really worked was the main event of WrestleMania. That's a triple threat.
Triple threat.
Let's get us one-on-one.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
You know, Miro, never touched him.
Yeah.
Moxley, never touched him. Claudio, never touched him.
I almost.
Swerve, never touched him. Hobbs, never touched him. Kyle Fletcher, never touched him. Kenny Omega, never touched him. Hangman Adam Page, never touched him. Like,
yeah. There's a lot of fun to be had.
there's a lot of fun there.
Yeah.
You know, and that's really like, you know, I get people are like, you know, the tribalism, that's the new word, right?
Right. Which I do think, look, I do think tribalism has been around forever.
It's just now there's the outlet,
That's it.
right?
That's it.
But, you know, because I remember NWA or WWF.
Of course.
And you were one or the other. I loved it all because I just liked wrestling.
We're wrestling fans.
Yeah. I don't love initials.
Right.
I just love a good wrestling match.
Yeah.
I love characters that I can relate to and get invested in. And so to me, I'm still the fan that just wants to check as many boxes as I can while I'm doing this thing. And I'm loving what I'm doing, and I'm not supposed to be doing it. So that's why for me, it's all a bunch of whipped cream on top of a really great sundae.
Yeah.
That was the first, 25 years. This is all just
Extra.
yeah. So don't worry about pulling it apart or splitting hairs and this and that. Like, just enjoy it, because I am.
Yeah.
And that goes for all of it. Like, oh, they didn't do this in the main event this year. Was it good? Yeah.
Yeah.
You reacted?
Right.
You had fun? There's your barometer.
And also, like, let's look at the body of work. Like, life is long, career. Like, look at the whole.
I've used the analogy. It's like, would you get mad at Paul Newman because he made a movie for MGM after he made one for Paramount? Ooh, but I love Paramount. I love Paramount. How dare you go to MGM?
Right.
You traitor.
Right. Traitor was the word. I saw the word traitor, betrayal being thrown around.
What? Come on.
Right.
It's
Just trying to do fun stuff.
yeah. We're just having fun, man.
Right.
That's it.
Right. We just got our tights on.
Just jumping around in tights.
Yeah, that's all.
Come on.
I can take my shirt off for a while.
It's theater of the absurd that we all enjoy.
Right.
So try going back to that person that enjoyed it.
Right.
You know?
Has there been anything specific about AEW that's either surprised you or that you've been fond of beyond the sort of general, freedom to do what it is that you do?
I think there's nothing that really surprised me.
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's all wrestling.
Right.
I think there's a lot of young talent there that are getting their reps not on house shows anymore. They're having to do it on live TV. And that is a different beast entirely. That is a far harder position to be put in. So I think I have more time, I guess, or more sympathy is not the right word, because we're all living our dream. But it's a harder
Understanding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's like every generation goes, well, it was harder on my generation. Yeah, it probably was. But guess what? That's why we work so hard, is to make it easier for the next generation to do this job, is so that you're not, left out in the cold, and you can make enough to save for that rainy day and all of those things. Every generation and any occupation works that hard to try and make it better. Maybe not easier, but better for the next generation. But with that next generation is going to come a whole set of problems that we didn't have. I didn't have to deal with social media. I didn't have to deal with some dude in Tuktiuktuk who's never taken a bump in a ring telling me that I'm lousy.
Mm-hmm.
What? That didn't happen.
Right.
They might be thinking it in their basement and tuck eating craft dinner, but I didn't hear it.
Right.
Now this generation has to deal with these different things that come at them, and not only just attacking what they do in the ring, but attacking them personally by doing that. It's a different beast, man.
And it's everything, right? It's not just
It is.
wrestling. It's like
No,
you have to think about that with
absolutely.
your kids. Like,
Absolutely.
if they
Like-
get bullied in school, they're getting bullied at home too, because it's, it's on their
they
phone.
Can't get away
It's-
from
yeah.
it, right? And I'm a Leafs fan, right? So I love my Toronto Maple Leafs, but I read some of the things people post. I'm like, oh my God,
Right.
what are you talking? Like, go do it, dude.
Right.
You go play D. I want to see how that goes,
Right.
and we'll pay you the same.
Yeah.
Because that's always the thing. Well, they get paid for it, right? Because they're awesome,
Right.
and that's why they're there, and why you're not. Like, I don't know. I just so that's a challenge that I feel like this generation has, and also the challenge of where do you get experience, and how do you get experience from someone who's more experienced?
Mm-hmm.
Because generally speaking, if it's the indies, well, those guys have worked on the indies, but you rarely get. Okay, I can work Greg Valentine, who was in an IC title program that made some serious money with Tito Santana. And he worked Roddy Piper in this dog collar match. And I can work him on this little show in Cleveland in front of 50 people. But I'm going to learn.
Right.
I can work Jimmy Valiant.
Well, you know what you got to do? You got to go out back on the indies.
Well, maybe not that.
You got to be the new Rick Martel.
But what I can do is be a sounding board.
Yes.
And go, okay, right. I'm not going to have every answer, and every talent has to find their people that they trust getting answers from or ideas from. But I love being a viable option. I talk to Swerve and have for years because I really like his thing. I always have. I talked to Kyle Fletcher. I talked to like a lot of these young guys, just like I did in WWE. Because I really love seeing light bulbs come on. That's really, really fun. Because I remember when they came on for me and how exciting that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, I don't want to keep you here all night long. You got a big match to prepare for tomorrow at the point
Although
of
we
this.
are avoiding traffic back to Long Island at this stage.
You know
so
what?
there's
That's a
that.
good call.
So there's that.
That's a good call. I forgot to mention two things. Number one, the promo that you cut for the World Heavyweight Championship tournament was awesome. That's the one where you said,
yeah.
I got one more in me. And I was like, oh, they should give it to him and he'll retire if he loses it. Okay, well, whatever.
Wow.
It was a good promo though. And by the way, I was also in like watching all my YouTube algorithm is all screwed up because I've been watching so much Edge footage before you got here.
I'm sorry. You're going to be a bunch of dudes in guy liner.
But the Money in the Bank briefcase really hadn't been defined
Yeah.
before you had it. And that's one of those things that now we all take for granted that like, oh yeah, it's just one of those things that a guy comes out randomly and does the thing. But like when you watch that first cash in and Vince McMahon comes out, there was this assumption that the Money in the Bank just meant like, oh, he'll announce a week in advance
you'll have
or
a
before the
match.
pay-per-view, you'll have a match.
Yeah.
It was never presumed to be, oh yeah, just a random point. As long as that dude's in the ring, I'm cashing in.
Yeah.
And it kind of changed history.
Yeah, it was again when the concept was first brought to me, I was like, another ladder match, man. Guys, I'm trying to shake that. I don't want to be the guy that, okay, we'll get you on Mania, but it's got to be in a multi-person ladder match. So at first I said, I don't need to be in it.
Yeah.
What a dumbass.
No, thank you.
What a dumbass. And they talked me into being in it. Your Gort's like, you should really be in it. You should really, really be in it. Yeah, all right. Sure. And
Frank Wirtz, what do you know?
yeah. Like, and then they said, and you're going over. I was like, oh, but still, what? It's a briefcase with a cot. Like, what is that? And then, then I started to sink my teeth into what it could be, and I one of the first times that I really went to Vince with something, I said, as this vile character, If I just say I'm going to do it and then just do a match, well, that's not. There's nothing bad about that. There's nothing, vile about that. But if I cash in after somebody's already beat the shit in an elimination chamber, it's still fully expecting that I'm going to just put Cena over, and add another layer to the S on the chest kind of thing, right? But that me mentioning that sparked an idea, and I truly just think it was right. We got to kind of get rid of this thing,
Right.
and because after a year it's no good. We're 9 months in. Okay, let's just do it here. We'll do a quick flip. We'll flip it back, and I truly think that's all it was. And then I just made sure that in that 3 weeks I'm going to do whatever I possibly can so that it will come back.
Right.
That was the goal. Because they said, yeah, we're going to drop back at Rumble and da-da-da. I was like, all right.
Okay. 3 weeks.
All right.
Yeah.
3 weeks here. Here we go.
Wow. Wow. That's all. Well,
And thank God for Mick Foley. I never give Mick enough credit for what he did for me and for what he, just what he did at that stage of his career.
Yeah.
And what limitations he was already working with, but you wouldn't have known it.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it.
That's awesome.
And he wanted me to get to where I wanted to get to. And I truly wanted to give him the thing he felt like he thought he was missing. So you got two maniacs now that are working for each other to give each other these missing things.
Yeah.
And that's a really, really satisfying thing. Because as we landed, I see my arm smoking, but I'm just like, I think Mick just got his moment. Okay. All right. And I'm crawling over and covering him. I love you, Mick. Love you too, Edster. Like,
Edster.
what are we doing?
In that moment. And I also loved it. I'm so glad that they just film everything, because who knows?
Yeah.
That in that one of the docs about that, they have footage of you after the match, kind of getting checked out by the doctor and everything, and you're just totally drained.
Yeah.
Like everything is just gone.
I also think I might have been in a little bit of shock.
Interesting, because of
little-
everything
a
you
little
just
bit.
put your body
Yeah.
through.
Yeah. Because I like my arm was bubbling and turning gray.
Yeah.
And I'm still getting thumbtacks pulled out on my back. And
Right.
I'm just like,
And
there's a
there-
weird fallout. There's like a dump of everything, but like everything.
Yeah.
Endorphins, dopamine, all of it.
Right.
Is just now. Blah. So you feel like this weird blob after something like that. It's odd.
There's an incredible shot in that match where it's with the barbed wire bat on your face.
Yeah.
And you see the blood starts running down.
Yeah.
And it's almost Christ-like in the sense that like it looks like they're just tears of blood
A lot of
as
happy
this
accidents.
thorn of this crown of thorns is draped across your head.
Well, and what I didn't realize, because I hadn't worked with those tools before,
Yeah.
is, well, it's got to be barbed wire. I was like, it's what? Oh,
But how do we do it?
you just do it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
It's like, what are we doing?
What are we doing? What are we doing? Well, look, man. I mean, I think that is AEW. Is this the last run? Do you think, or are you no longer quantifying?
It's hard to quantify,
Right.
honestly. But really, I walked into this thinking this is where I'm ending my career, and I'm ending it with some of my best friends in the industry. I'm my very best friend in life. Daniel and David, the FTR guys. I look around and I see Frank Jericho, and it's like, it's really nice, and again, really exciting. So, in my mind, I already have ideas for the end, and I feel good. But I also know there's limitations, and the work that I have to put in now just to feel good enough to do it, that's going to get harder and harder, You know, it's things I didn't do before. So now there's a regimen, there's a routine, there's a, like, I eat my, you saw me, I came in with my meals. You know, I do my cold plunge. I do like all of, I stretch for an hour a day. Like those are all things I didn't do before. And I have to do those things just to be able to look okay in a pair of tights,
Sure.
let alone then do the stuff.
Sure.
And I know I can't get in and do some of the things Will Ospreay's going to do, but I can figure out ways for him to do those things and then counter it with my thing.
Yes. That's what the ultimate opportunist does.
Yes.
That's what you do.
So
Be smarter.
another guy I've never touched, by the way.
Will Ospreay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many.
One of the things I really like about the short interview you did 11 years ago, I asked you, who did you want your last match to actually be with? You said Christian, and one of my people that goes through my video and stuff found the clip. We were able to post it again when you came back to AEW. I was like, this is amazing, like fun, full circle. So in the spirit of that, as we sit here today, in your head, when you think about what the end could look like, in terms of the performance of it, do you want the end to be triumphant, or do you want the end to be heartbreaking?
I don't think it needs to be triumphant.
Yeah.
You know, I already had that.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know if it's Christian anymore.
Right. No. And
You know
I
what I
brought
mean?
up Christian more to contextualize what you're
Well,
doing now
sure.
than that to be the last match.
You know, it'd be nice to give that final shot in the arm to that person, or even the person who's already there, but it ain't gonna hurt. You know, in a perfect world, again, to me, the place is really important, and I would love to do it in Maple Leaf Gardens. That I would love to do, even if it means I gotta start an indie for a day, and I gotta book Maple Leaf Gardens, and I gotta film it, and I gotta get the production team, and I gotta get the talent to be able to do it in the place that I first saw wrestling live.
Yeah.
To be back in that place.
We got to do it. I mean, this is literally going back to Dennis Stamp, because what was the show?
Got to make my own show.
Terry Funk's WrestleFest in Amarillo, Texas. It was his own retirement show, and everybody came in, and he got to work Bret Hart in one of his retirement matches. You know, I truly feel like this is the way we do the AEW run.
Yep. And then I start my own promotion.
And then you for one night Copeland Championship in the Maple Leaf Gardens. You bring somebody in, and then you have your moment, and then 3 years later you come back as Chainsaw Charlie.
No.
All right. It was worth bitching. It was worth trying.
Hey, honestly though, if I could do it in Maple Leaf Gardens, man,
Yeah.
there's no other place, and there's no other ending after that.
Yeah.
It's just that's it. You know, to Macho Man Randy Savage, Jesse Body Ventura, Junkyard Dog Tito Santana, my first main event that I watched live. Tony Cannonball Parisi against Rene Goulet, first match. To go back and be able to do it in that place, that'd be special.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, it's also special that you watch one pay-per-view and the Judgment Day are headlining, and you watch the other company's pay-per-view and Adam Copeland is one of the headline matches. It's pretty, I mean, you've done a pretty good job of putting some gasoline in the industry.
Well, I mean, hopefully
Contributing in whatever way you can.
Hopefully.
I think so.
I'm proud of those guys. Really, really proud of those guys, because they took it and made it so much better and ran with it.
How about, and this is just ironic, Punk's out of AEW.
Yeah.
You're into AEW.
Yeah.
You're out of WWE. Punk's into WWE. Who's his first match back with?
Dom
Mysterio. I mean,
that was not happening 3 years ago.
that again goes back to the point that I think the way wrestling is right now,
It's fun.
just watch. Just
fun.
Watch and see where it goes, because none of us know where any of this is going.
And
it's good.
And it's so much better for everyone in the industry too.
Yes.
Like that's the part that to me is so amazing.
Yeah.
You know, Tony Khan started a wrestling company because he's a wrestling fan. God bless him for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you have a bunch of talent that might not be doing anything that are able to do something.
Mm-hmm.
and people that might go, okay, well, the window's closed over here, but there's a wide open window over there.
Right.
That's amazing. You know, and WWE is still going to be this monolithic beast. It just is. And that's great.
And what's really great is, to me, is like what we're seeing is performers that are like, we've now seen it on both sides. I don't know if I can tell the story that I want to tell over here.
Sure.
I better go over here.
Sure.
And they tell the story, and it's a great story. And then over here, I don't know if I can tell that story. I'm going to go over here and tell the story. We get all the stories.
Yeah.
We get to see them.
Yeah, there's
It's
a place
awesome.
to do the story.
Right.
There's a place that, okay, we'll try that story.
Right.
Okay. You know, that's fun.
It's fun.
That's fun.
It's fun.
Yeah.
That's the theme of this, man. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being so generous with your time and coming through and doing this. This is great.
This was fun.
Yeah.
Again, fun.
Fun.
Look at us.
It's fun. Look at us. Look at
Like
us.
Paul Rudd on Hot Ones.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.